line in that chapter that talks about power as the proper means of conducting yourself in life. There's not a line in the book, and there's nothing in anything I've ever said that suggests that.
Okay, no,
So it's really important because people have read this chapter and they make exactly the argument that you make. And it's a misapprehension. So it's a misapprehension of the book.
okay, but if so many people are getting the same misapprehension, could it be
There aren't so
possible?
many people that are getting it. There's 2 million people that have bought the book, and there's a very small handful of people who have a particular ideological perspective who enjoy developing that perspective because it indicates just what sort of reprehensible individual I am. But it has absolutely nothing to do with what I wrote or what I've said or what I believe. I don't believe that our fundamental hierarchies are based on power. I don't believe that the way that we move up our hierarchies is as a consequence of manifesting power. It's competence.
Okay, my big problem with the lobsters is that it's scientifically bollocks.
There will be limitations.
Right? It's just, you cannot read across from lobsters and what they do to what humans do.
That's why serotonin works on lobsters.
But it works in 2 different ways. So it's serotonin makes lobsters more aggressive, and makes humans less aggressive. Right? That's
No,
not
that's not right.
That's
Serotonin makes human beings more dominant but less aggressive. And the only reason it makes them more dominant is because they're less irritable and they're less defensively aggressive. So it's not bollocks. I know my neurochemistry. So if you're going to play neurochemistry, let's go and do it.
Okay, well you say antidepressants work on lobsters.
Yes, they do. They make a lobster that's been defeated in a fight more likely to fight again.
That's not the same mechanism that
It's the
happens
same
in
mechanism.
humans.
Yes, it is.
Lobsters
It's the
don't
same
get
mechanism.
depressed as the way that humans are. I think you're anthropomorphizing into a ridiculous degree. These are
I think
creatures that urinate out of their faces.
I think that the fundamental issue among knowledgeable animal behaviorists is that anthropomorphization with animals is generally the appropriate tactic unless you have reason to doubt it, which is because there's continuity between us and animals rather than discontinuity. And the idea that the anthropomorphization of animals is inappropriate is something derived from 1950s behaviorism. The highly trained affective neuroscientists and people who study motivation and emotion as well as neurochemistry know perfectly well that there is biological and behavioral continuity across the animal kingdom and way down into the kingdom as well, which is exactly why I chose lobsters, to indicate that there is so much continuity in the systems that allow us to estimate a status position that we share it with creatures that are a third of a billion years old. And the reason that I made that argument was to put paid at least in part to the absurd Marxist proposition that hierarchical structures are a secondary consequence of Western civilization and free market economies, which is as preposterous a perspective as you could possibly develop about anything. Hierarchies are a third of a billion years old. You can't blame them on the West or men or capitalism. And we're wired for hierarchical perception in ways that you could hardly possibly imagine. Even our ability to rank order a set of objects seems to be tightly linked to our ability to assess the relative status of people in our social milieus. So, and the biochemistry is very, very similar, and the reason we know that is because most of the drugs on people are first tested on animals. Now, it's not often animals as primitive as lobsters, but it is plenty. So a lot of what we know about neurological structure, for example, is a consequence of studying the flatworm worm, which is a much more primitive organism than the lobster. Continuity is the rule.
Okay, so what can we learn from killer whales that live in matriarchal pods, often led by a grandmother, someone who's been through a menopause? Why isn't that an example that you've picked to talk about in the book? It's because lobsters say the thing that ideologically you want to talk about, which is your belief that there is a kind of Marxist ideology.
How did lobsters say that? The point that I was making with lobsters, I just said what it was. But hierarchies have been around for a very
But
long
who
time.
genuinely, really, today is arguing, apart from maybe 3 mad Marxist academics, that there is no such thing as hierarchy? Hierarchies.
They're not arguing
exist.
that there's no such thing as hierarchy.
Oh, there
They're
should be no
arguing
such thing
that-
as hierarchies.
Oh, there are plenty of them are arguing that.
Really? Because I see that almost never in the wild as an argument. I see people think that hierarchy should be based on merit and
What
they
do
should
you
be more
think? What do you
equal.
think the demand for equality of outcome is if it's not an attempt to flatten hierarchies or to eliminate them? What else could it possibly be? And you don't think the neo-Marxists and the postmodernists think that higher social construction? Like, you're not talking about the same people that I know,
Right.
that's for sure.
But this-
Everything's a social construction for the social constructionists, including hierarchies.
But I just don't think that is a very widely held view in the world. It might be among
It's
liberal arts universities.
20% of social scientists identify as Marxist. And the
Where's that statistic from?
look it up in Haidt's work.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm interested. I know.
I've checked it out quite
Yeah,
carefully.
yeah, but
It's a perfectly valid statistic. I don't have the reference at hand.
Yeah.
So it's 1 in 5. Okay, and the number of conservatives, or even liberals for that matter, in the social sciences and humanities is not only vanishingly small, but getting smaller. And you think the social constructionists believe that hierarchy is built into biology? They're not very good social constructionists if that's what they believe. And the postmodernists and the neo-Marxists are radical social constructionists because they wouldn't believe that human beings are infinitely malleable and that we can be recreated in whatever image the ideologues might want to recreate us in if they didn't think that. And it's much more prevalent than you're admitting. I mean, there isn't a competing position on campuses except among the evolutionary biologists and the evolutionary psychologists, let's say, and they're under complete attack. They're certainly next on the chopping block as far as I can tell. I've been warning them for the last 2 years. Social constructionists don't like evolutionary psychologists and they don't like biology. And I really don't understand why, except that it interferes with this idea that human beings are infinitely malleable and stops them from being able to blame hierarchy on the West. Look, if you're really concerned about the poor, as a social democrat, let's say, the first thing you should do is abandon your presupposition that the dispossession produced by hierarchies is a consequence of the patriarchal structure of the West. It's a way deeper problem than that. So there have been people who've been dispossessed forever, way before capitalism.
Okay, I think I would agree with that. So if it is a way deeper problem than that, how do you tackle it?
I don't know.
Well, that's a bit, I mean, that, for someone as intelligent as you that just throw their hands up and go, maybe some
There's
people
lots of things I don't know how to tackle. I don't know how to tackle the fact that people range extremely widely in their cognitive ability either. These are big problems.
No, but we could start with a redistributive tax policy, right, where people who earn a lot pay more tax than people lower down the income scale to redistribute income. That was a fairly obvious way that you could make poor people less poor. It's something that, the Labour government did. They almost, I think they halved child poverty. It is possible to do things, and we do have mechanisms.
Well, I wouldn't make the immediate presumption that it was the redistributive tax policy that halved child poverty. You know that absolute poverty in the world has halved between the year 2000 and 2012, and you can't attribute that to redistributive policies.
No, I can't. I'm only talking about Britain. I'm talking about that particular government, which had, then there are fiscal analyses that have been done. But I think let's move on from lobsters. I mean,
That chapter is about people becoming responsible and confident, not about them becoming like dominant and powerful.
Okay,
it's not that at all.
But my problem is, I think it's criticised by a lot of marine biologists, right, and by a lot of geneticists
I think
for it.
one.
Okay, well, I can name you. P.Z. Myers is one who's criticised you. Adam Rutherford, who's former editor of Nature, has criticised that chapter. There are, that is not. But what I think is
No
fascinating is
reasonable
that
biologists dispute the fact that most organisms organize themselves into hierarchies, and that the fundamental biological mechanism for the regulation of hierarchy is the serotonin system. That's not disputable. Now, you can find animal organizational structures that vary from that, what would you call it, fundamental pattern. But the existence of variance isn't proof against the existence of a fundamental pattern. Like, I don't know how you can sit there and be skeptical about this. If you know the literature on hierarchical structure, you understand that across the entire animal kingdom, animals tend to organize themselves into hierarchies. And that the neurochemistry
but very
of the hierarchy
different
is
types of
divergent.
hierarchies, right? So
Well, there's a
you
pattern.
have
That's why we know they're hierarchies.
Yeah, but like you say, the pattern as if that's
The hierarchy is the pattern.
right. Okay, and that's fine. So chimps have one very obvious social structure, and bonobos have
It's
another
not
one.
as different as people have made it out to be.
No.
The bonobos are a lot more violent than the
Right, and they're not hippie monkeys,
Rousseauian
right?
observers of the bonobos have admitted.
Okay, but nonetheless, you say that as if those little details don't matter, as if there can't be such a thing as a hierarchy that is much worse than another hierarchy. That's my
I'm
problem
not
with
saying
it.
that at all. There's clearly hierarchies that are worse than other hierarchies.
Right.
Baboons have terrible hierarchies, for example.
And I'm saying-
tyrannical hierarchies aren't my cup of tea.
Right.
That isn't the point I was making.
No.
The point I was making was that hierarchies can't be blamed on capitalism or the West. They're built into our biology. The neurochemistry is so old that we share it with crustaceans, so that's a third of a billion years, which is the proof that hierarchies aren't a recent construct. If proof like that needs to be provided, and that the best way for people to adopt a strategy that will move them up the hierarchy, which is a desirable thing in most regards, is to face the suffering of the world forthrightly. That's what that chapter is about. And the people who've been criticizing it read it as if it's a defense of the Western patriarchy. It's like there's no defense of the Western patriarchy.
No, I don't think that's true. I think the way that people criticise it is and I think this happens a lot with Evely, is which is not quite what the lobsters are, but where other stuff in the book is. Other things you said, for example, like women wear rouge because it reminds men of ripe fruit. Right, well, for a start...
Why do you think women wear rouge?
I have absolutely no idea. But
Right, that's really not a very good answer.
Well, yeah, you said before there were lots of things you don't know the answer to. But I'll tell you one thing.
I'm not criticizing your perspective on this. You're criticizing mine, so I'm presuming you have an alternative idea. Why do you think women wear makeup?
I think there are an enormous number. Let's go back to why women wear rouge, because it reminds men of ripe fruit. Okay, first of all, not all ripe fruit is red. Why would you want?
Do you want color vision to detect ripe fruit?
Do you want to eat women? No, I think unless men are having sex with ripe fruit, that's not really well. And where is the evidence that women who are redder in the cheeks have more offspring?
What do you think happens during the sexual flush?
But that's the key point, isn't it? Is that you would expect, actually, if this is a sexual selection, that women who are redder would have more children who get progressively redder over time.
One of the hallmarks of youthful skin is the proclivity for it to flush red. And yes, youthful women have more children. It's a primary sign of fertility.
I think
Wait a second here. What do you think women wear makeup for? Come on, if you're going to go after me on this,
okay.
Let women. People say, well, women wear makeup to feel better about themselves. It's not a very deep analysis. Why makeup? Why facial makeup?
I'll tell you why I wear makeup, which is to stop the comments that I would get if I didn't wear makeup. And my gender, I always say my gender is low maintenance, right? I don't feel particularly like a woman inside. I don't really know what that would mean. But what I try and do is try and look, in the same way that you get black women who talk about the problem with natural hair, is it's seen as unprofessional, right? And as a woman, if you don't wear makeup, that is seen as a political choice. That is seen as something that, you are...
So you wear makeup to protect yourself from what? From tyrannical men?
No, but tyrannical women as well, I would say. I think women very harshly judge each other's appearance, and there are very good reasons for that. But
probably because they've learned that from oppressive men.
No, I don't think so.
Why do you think it is, then?
I think that women are encouraged to be seen as being in competition with each other.
Encouraged? You don't think that there's anything about that that's natural, eh?
Well, I would be reluctant to get into that, because I think you could talk about intrasexual competition. I think that's a very big deal among the social sciences and evolutionary science. It's not my particular competence. But yeah, my conception of the patriarchy is not that men are beastly to women. It is that there is a structure in which women participate too that overall privileges and benefits men in order to control female reproduction. And I think those are two very different things. You write in 12 Rules that you skipped a grade in school and you were small for your age. Do you think that shaped your personality and your experiences of life?
Well, it did to some degree. Made it difficult for me to participate in sports. So I didn't really do anything that was fundamentally athletic till I was in graduate school. So my parents are guilty about that because they felt that it wasn't good for me, but I'm not unhappy about it. I got through school faster. I wasn't a fan of school, and the faster I got through it, the better. I think it might have encouraged me to do two other things, which was I probably hung around with rougher kids than I might have otherwise, partly as a compensation, I suppose, for being smart and academically able and also small. So I probably exaggerated my roughness, I suppose, and it made me more capable of verbally defending myself. But other than that, I don't think it had much of an effect. I think I pretty much left all of that behind.
That's very good. Also, the other thing I was really interested in was that you married your teenage sweetheart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I met her when I was 8. So we've known each other for 50 years, yeah.
So this is, I think, really fascinating. So I read that and I thought that was quite moving. And then I was reading a bit about, the animal kingdom, and the free takeaway from the lobster section is that, what happens if you're top lobster is that you get to impregnate all the females, so as being evolutionarily successful as a lobster, right?
Mm-hmm. That's proclivity towards polygamy, which is one of the things that pulls on human society.
Right, and you're now the pretty big lobster. And yet you are monogamous, you're faithful to your wife, you don't want to go around impregnating every woman that you see, right?
No, one woman's enough trouble.
Right. So I think that's really, to me, that was really interesting because that's a way in which we are very obviously very different from animal society, and to me,
Well,
it
we're
takes
not that different. I mean, there are plenty of societies where exactly that happens.
right. But
So-
you've been able to overcome that biological urge, right? And so, in the sense that maybe there are other biological urges, such as men's propensity towards violence, that might also be overcome.
Well, it's not self-evident that you want it to be overcome. I mean, you don't know what goes along with it. You know, I mean, obviously, first of all, defining violence isn't that straightforward. How about use of force in self-defense? Does that constitute violence?
I think to me that's a separate category of violence. I think
Well,
self-defense.
but it's not that easy to distinguish them. Like if you're, what you want to do with a child who's aggressive is socialize them so that they become sophisticated in their manifestation of their aggression. You don't want to inhibit it. You certainly don't want to socialize little boys to be more like little girls. That's, first of all, you don't know how to do it to begin with. But second of all, it's not an advisable strategy. So.
Well, I find that really, really interesting because in the book you say that actually if you feminize men, that might give them more of a, might have more of an allure towards, these very fascist
there's no doubt
ideologies.
about that. That's standard psychoanalytic. That's like psychoanalysis 101. If you repress something, it comes back with a vengeance.
Okay, so tell me what you mean by feminizing in that sense. Because to me, if you don't mind me saying so, you are a man who is quite feminine. You're in touch with your feminine side. You are very well dressed. You talk a lot about your diet. You've talked about your emotions.
I hate talking about my diet.
Right, but you cry in public. You enjoy spending time with your kids. All of these things that are not
sad, isn't it?
But they're not stereotypically male, and I think that's very admirable.
Pretty strange behavior for a patriarchal tyrant.
Well, that's why I think that you're probably, in some ways, you're not a patriarchal tyrant, or that actually all of our programming, if you want to call it that in biology, is overcomable, because you are...
It's integratable.
Right, but you are a man who some people would say has a lot of feminine traits like that, and I don't... Do you think that means that you are now being in the allure of authoritarian fascistic ideologies, because you're baking cakes?
Oh, I notice the allure.
And what do you do with that?
Work to live such that there's no temptation in that, which is also what I recommend to everyone else.
Right.
If you see any temptation in that, then you should straighten yourself up real quick. So, and that's what I've done for decades. So of course you have to see the allure in that. If you don't see the allure in it, you're a fool. Just like if you don't see the allure in the radical leftist ideas. I mean, if you didn't understand the allure, you couldn't understand the ideas. They're dangerously alluring. It'd be lovely if there was a strong man who could solve all our problems, and those who deserved it got exactly what was coming to them. It's not something that I would recommend as a wish. So, but that doesn't mean you want to be blind to its attraction. You want to see what the dark parts of you are attracted to. It helps you keep an eye on where things can go if they go badly sideways. So, I don't think it has anything to do, though, with my what would you say, more classically feminine interests. Not as far as I can tell. I mean, I have all sorts of classically masculine interests too, so
right,
it seems to be reasonably well balanced.
Right, so you talk then about we shouldn't socialise little boys like little girls, but actually, I have lots of stereotypes. I'm interested in politics, which is overwhelmingly male-dominated. You have lots of classically feminine interests. Why, what is the problem here with people having personalities that are a mixture?
There's no problem with that at all. The problem is when it's dictated by fiat.
Well, who's fiat?
How about the education system?
So in schools, you think that there is.
Well, I outlined it. I can't remember the psychologist's name at the moment, but he was quite influential in the 1980s, who recommended as a control for male violence that boys be socialized more like little girls. And I don't think that that's a particularly unpopular viewpoint. So the de-emphasis on competition, for example, in games, the increase in the rise of competitive games where scores aren't kept, that sort of thing, is all a manifestation of that kind of theory as far as I'm concerned. The idea that there's something intrinsically wrong with competition is a very foolish idea, especially if you want to motivate relatively aggressive boys, because they're competitive. Well, competition, that's not good. Someone has to lose. It's like, well, you're not going to get very far looking at the world that way, I'm afraid. Maybe you want to generate a plethora of games so that everybody has a shot at winning. That's a good idea, but you certainly don't want to devalue the notion of winning. If you're doing something necessary, you should reward people who are particularly good at it. It's part of the definition of it being necessary. So, and you don't want to control aggression anymore than you want to control sex. You want to integrate it. And if it's integrated, that's the integration of the shadow from the Jungian perspective, and something I talk a lot about in my lectures.
Any newer ones?
You need to have the capacity for danger. You need to be dangerous. But you need to learn how to not use it except when it's necessary. And that is not the same as being harmless. Harmless, that's a terrible virtue. It's like a rabbit. There's nothing virtuous about harmlessness. It just means you're ineffectual.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Well, I think there are some people who, through their harmlessness, become iconic and they become symbols. I think the Gandhian principle of non-violence.
He's not harmless. He just transcended his deep violence. That is a completely different thing. Without that,
So when are you getting any more stock of them?
there would be no way he would have had the strength of character
Not
that
until
he
you
had.
call me,
He was an
really.
integrated person, not a harmless person.
Okay.
That's a very, very different thing.
Did you have different ambitions for your daughter and for your son?
Some of them were different. I encouraged my daughter in her desire to be a mother, which is not something I did with my son.
Did you encourage him in his desire to be a father?
Absolutely.
Right. So you encourage both of them to be a parent.
Right, but those are different.
Yeah.
So, you know, and yeah, I mean, in some sense, I think it's harder for young women because, of course, the problem of integrating family with career is a more complex problem for women to solve. So, and I spent a lot of time talking to her about how she might solve that. I wouldn't say that we came up with anything that was spectacularly original or successful, but I at least let her know that whatever pathway she chose was fine with me if she, as long as she was being honest with herself about what it was that she wanted. But also that, you know, I'm not a fan of the idea that the most fundamental orientation that a person is likely to have in their life is career. I don't believe that's true for most people. I certainly don't believe it's true for most women. And I think the evidence supports that claim quite straightforwardly. So,
However, it is the only thing that you get paid for under capitalism. Right?
man, live.
But that's
How can you say something like that? It's so cliched.
Well,
It's so painful to hear
it
that.
may be cliche, but it nonetheless is true, right? Women do
It's
more,
not
much more.
capitalism. Well, for God's sake.
It
No,
is.
it isn't. You have to invest into a child for 18 years before they have any economic utility. It's a consequence of delayed economic utility. We don't know how to monetize it. It's not a consequence of capitalism. It's a consequence of the fact that human beings have an 18-year dependency. How do you monetize that? Even in principle. But we don't know.
50% not children, to be fair. And at that point,
Well,
what's
true.
really interesting is at that point, children were seen as being much more the property of the man, and as they become economically useless, all the legal studies show, but that's when we start moving to a model of female custody, capitalism about caring labour. So this is the point I'm making, is
Look, I'll tell you, there are plenty of men who are not very happy about the model of female custody. And that would include the, what is it, 85% of men who are essentially denied 50-50 custody when they divorce and have young children. So I wouldn't think that one of our major problems, or at least a major unidimensional problem, is the proclivity of men to foist off the custody of their children onto women.
No, I just
There's certainly another side of that argument.
there is, and I do think that actually a lot of areas are generated by the way we have it in Britain. Anyway, we have that in England and Wales, we have an adversarial fault-based divorce system. That's something that's changing, but what it does is encourage people to come in on day one and say, if you want to get divorced, you're going to have to make out a case that the other person has been a
It
bastard.
doesn't matter if you move to a non-fault-based divorce system, then all that happens is the fault
So take a
shifts to
chance
who
on
should
that.
get custody. So it
So take
doesn't
a chance
remove
on it.
the
That's
acrimony
non-braless
by any
pro.
stretch
It's a
of the
good one.
imagination.
They're all
It just
good. I
shifts
said
it
to you,
to
you
custody
don't have to
of
worry
the
about it. If you
children,
don't
as
like
has happened in
it,
Canada.
bring it back. You've got 48
I'll
hours
just
to
have
do
it
that.
anyway. I'm not
Custody, because
fucking
it's
hell,
the
I'm
idea
so
is not
for
that you
mine now.
own the children, it's that you actually want to be able to see the children and spend time with them, and I think that's really important.
So it was
But
called
fault-based
Dinara.
divorce is something that increases the chances of couples having a bad divorce, right? That's the problem, is it sets people against each other from the start. They have to go into court and contest that the other person has done something wrong, which is not a great base on which to start then an argument about
You
what
think
you're
people
going to settle.
should be encouraged to divorce even if no one's done anything wrong?
No, I think that having to prove that in a court of law is not something that is going to lead you to a better arbitration about settling money and settling, access to children. I think that's the point. You have a ridiculous situation where couples who say, well, actually, we just grown apart, nonetheless, unless they want to wait 5 years or 2 years for separation,
Somebody
they have to
having
go
or
in
not.
and plead
I want to know
unreasonable
what
to get a
it
divorce and
was.
start splitting
Does it
their assets.
matter?
Yeah.
That's the the joy of no-fault divorce is that
It's
you
like
don't have
you
to make
were
this
looking at it on
investigation,
your
simply say,
phone.
oh no, he's no longer with me.
That's what she
I'm
wants
part
to
way.
do.
I'm doing
Yeah.
exactly the same as you.
Hey, don't be backing her up now.
It also seems quite naive to me. I've seen very few non-acrimonious divorces. They're very hard on
That's the
kids.
women.
So
I think
I don't think anything that makes them
Does it
easier
really
is a very
matter?
good idea.
Yeah,
might be
it
good in
allows
the
you to
short
see
term, but
what
it's
you
not good in the
smell
long
like.
term. Unless you
But
don't
I've-
think that
I've-
marriage is a useful
alleged
institution.
is
And
like
if you think that it's
alleged
part of the
night
patriarchal
by
tyranny, then you
Monroe.
might think that as
No,
well.
that's the
So,
new one for men. But
it's a
I
very
can't
useful
see
institution,
this now
mostly
because
for
the list
kids.
I've got here
When are you
looks
getting
like
any
it's
more
for
I
men.
agree that I'm
These
married,
other ones?
and modern marriage is a lot
end
to
of the
recommend it.
week
I do
or
also think it is a
next week.
patriarchal institution.
I'm
It
gonna,
is
don't
literally-
I'm gonna place
Why do
the.
you think that?
Well,
I'm
Because
gonna
you think
place the
virtually
order now.
everything that
Place the
that
order.
society is a
Mont Blanc
patriarchal
I'll come back for
institution.
them.
It's easy to think that because then you only have to think
Mont
one
Blanc
thing.
Explorer,
There's
that's
a
what I
one
told
thing
you.
answer for everything.
You
Got
can
right.
correct me.
Part
Which
of
one
the
did I
patriarchal
say?
institution.
I don't think you're breaking a rule that says
Survive.
maybe treat people as
Survive.
something
I'm
worth
also
hearing.
free.
So
It's
I'm
God's
not
creed,
making a
please.
case for the patriarchal
And
tyranny.
it's
And I don't think you are either. I think that you're making a case that
Mont Blanc.
that's like a universally cliched case for the patriarchal
Yeah.
tyranny. I don't see too
Why
much
do
of
women
you
change
reflected
their
in your
names?
articles at all.
That's for men.
why do women change their names on marriage traditionally?
Oh, I like
I
that.
don't know exactly. Why do you think they do?
Because it was to
Alleged.
symbolise the transfer of their ownership from one family to another family. That's why in The Handmaid's Tale you have Off-Warren.
Oh,
I need to
God,
find,
Margaret
no, there's a
Atwood. Well,
perfume that I need
She
to
was
find
just
out the
about
name
devoured
of.
by
She's got
what it
two
is.
bottles
last year, so
anyway.
that was something
I'm alright.
interesting to
So
observe.
I'm
I think she made a
thinking,
very good point. She
you
wasn't
come back
devoured
next
by all
time.
feminists. I'm a feminist. I thought
I
what
will
she said about
buy
due process in cases like that is perfectly
another two more.
reasonable.
Well, many people didn't.
Why
No,
not?
but then, yeah, guess what? This is on the internet. You can find someone who disagrees with pretty much anything. But, so why do you think women change their names when they get married traditionally? If it's not about transfer of property ownership traditionally.
I don't know if I have
It's
an
a good
opinion
one.
about
She
that.
works at the hospital.
The
Somebody
specific
hides it
reasons for that, I'd have to look into it for a fair amount of time before I decided it, but I certainly wouldn't boil it down to a unidimensional argument about the ownership of women by men. So, I
Okay.
mean, I just, you know, the part of the problem too
That's
is
nice,
with
that's
this sort of
nice.
discussion is that
That's
it's, and this
Which
is
one
why I
is it? Like
consider
this?
it a
Yeah, it's a
manifestation
Mont
of
Blanc
ideological
paste.
possession.
same mate.
Yeah,
It's
the person
mixed
who
in
makes
mate.
it.
Yeah. So
Well,
it's
that's
similar
what
to
Knowing
that.
your
But having-
stance on
but having
I've
a
never sold
coherent
it. It's-
ideology
I'm
doesn't
gonna
mean that it's
order it.
predictable
you
because
don't
it
need an
is
ideology.
it is one
What
logical
did you
thing
think
that flows
about
from
these?
another and all those pieces
I thought it
tessellate
was
together.
nice.
That's what I find very interesting
it
about
looks
your
nice,
thinking. I
well,
find
I
it quite
think I'll
slightly baffling is
order
that
these.
I don't really see how all the pieces fit together.
You're
You
going
know,
to sell
say
that
you're
Savatian
you believe
Creed
in
all
God,
day,
there's a
aren't
lot
you?
of-
No, they always run out very
Just want that
quickly.
one there, mate.
Yeah,
Right.
they always
Actually,
run out
my
very
definition
quickly.
of
Those.
belief.
Okay,
fine.
and that, so, but that's in, but that then doesn't tessellate very obviously with your insistence that, you know, actually it's just about
So
pure science.
what are you
and
gonna
not-
do for what's
What
this?
insistence
The
that it's just
Valentine's
about
Day.
pure science?
Well,
Is that what you're gonna get for
Absolutely, there's no
Valentine's?
insistence in that, it's just about
Okay,
pure
but
science.
you make it feel
They're
as
two
though-
very different.
What she's
You
doing.
never
You
appeals
do
to science all
Valentine
the
every
time. You
day.
say, well, this is what the literature says. And the trouble with God is that ultimately you can't say this is what the literature says. There is no
Okay,
literature.
don't worry.
Basically, I wanted to get her in a wooden hut, go with like jacuzzi and stuff like that.
Maybe under certain conditions.
Send me a
called
message to
chemical-induced
check if we
mysticism.
got the
Which seems to be
That's
something
the
that you
mobile
can
number
say
there, the
something
WhatsApp.
scientifically
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But I see
yeah.
that there's two
Send
different
us a
realms.
message
One
there.
is the realm of values
Send us
and
a
the realm of
message to
facts.
remind
And the
us
realm
if
of
you got
facts,
it,
science
yeah?
reigns
Yeah.
supreme.
Otherwise, you
But
can
it
give
doesn't
me
in
your
the realm
number
of
and I'll
values. You
let
have
you
to
know.
look elsewhere. That was what the humanities were for.
Yeah, because
What was it?
When they arrive,
What would you say?
you
Hijacked by
just send her
ideologues.
then to come and.
And you know,
Yeah,
the
she's
idea
gonna
that
grab
something
one, I'm
should be
gonna grab
consistent.
Yeah.
Me,
You were
07523.
talking about the necessity for consistency in ideology. It's like,
966
I'm not hearing what you think.
033.
I'm hearing
Zero, three,
As soon
what,
as you
how
say that,
you're
I'll come
able
down
to
it, yeah.
represent the ideology you were taught.
Yeah.
I want
Well,
that.
why
And it's
don't
not that
go on
interesting
here?
because I
Savage
don't
or
know anything
Creed,
about
any of
you.
them two.
I could replace you with
So
someone
you
else
want
who
me to
thinks the
call you
same way.
Savage?
And that means you're not here.
Oh, me, Ian.
That's what it means.
Yes, Ian.
It's not pleasant.
IAN.
So you're not
Yeah.
drawing,
Savage
you're not
or Creed,
integrating
yeah.
the specifics of your personal
Ian.
experience
Yeah.
with what you've been
And then
taught to
she wants
synthesize something that's
Sue as well.
genuine and surprising.
But she
and
doesn't know the
engaging
names.
in
I don't know that. I need to find the names
And
of
that's
them,
the
and then I'll let you know.
pathology of
You've got the
possession.
phone there.
Got
Yeah.
two bottles now already.
And it's
No,
not
I'm
good
fine
that
for now.
I know
But
where
you
you
said
stand
it's
on
the
things,
name
once I
of
know a
one.
few things.
I ain't got any. This is,
Why have a
I ran
conversation?
out
I already
completely.
know where you
So.
stand on things.
Christmas
I think you
is.
don't know where I
Christmas
stand on
wasn't
all
long
things.
ago.
I would hope
Yeah.
that that was true.
All right, thank you very
Okay,
much.
let's
Yes,
talk about,
I'll send
let's talk
you
about
the-
transgender
Get
issues.
nothing for
That's fun.
Christmas.
What do you think I think about transgender issues?
Right, okay, the names. I'll say
Presents office. Dollars and that.
I suspect that you
I'm
think
just
that
sending the
gender
message.
expression,
Say the name.
gender identity
You see that message there, so if she gets
are
the name, she can
fundamentally
reply to that.
social
Yeah, okay.
constructs, but I could be wrong.
No, I believe that there are definitely some biological differences between the sexes. We've observed them. I do believe that gender is a hugely powerful social structure that we've built on top of that, and it is largely but not entirely socially constructed. I think when you look back through the history, biological differences have consistently shrunk, and like we were talking in the
They
80s.
haven't in Scandinavia, they've magnified.
Okay, but we were talking in the
And that's
80s.
actually an important exception because
Right.
Scandinavia has gone farther than any other area.
J'étais dehors là, j'allais faire un truc là, je venais de rentrer là, j'étais appelé là, c'est pas passé.
Ouais, ouais. On a essayé tant bien que mal là de, n'est-ce pas, trouver une solution au problème. Mais notre sœur a décidé de Nganga, au point même de dire à la dame qui garde son enfant là que ses frères veulent arracher son immeuble. C'est ce qu'elle a dit à la dame là. Donc, elle m'a dit de laisser tomber. Parce que le dernier tour de négociation qu'on a fait, je sais pas, en démarche.
Les voix que tu m'as envoyées là.
Oui, je sais pas, je t'ai envoyé, je sais pas quelle voice je t'ai envoyé, mais.
Tu m'avais envoyé les voix
De la réunion?
Je parle du mal là.
Ah, ok,
Il y
ok.
avait Polo, Tito,
Ouais.
Java,
Ouais.
Mandema.
Ouais. J'avais envoyé les voices là. Ce dimanche là, j'avais manqué l'église par rapport à ça. En fait, je suis arrivé moi à l'église, mais j'ai fait toute l'église dehors. J'étais dans la voiture. Ouais, je suis arrivé là-bas, j'ai fait tout ça dehors. Parce que bon, c'était important. Maintenant, la dernière, je demande un franc symbolique. Il y en avait qui veulent créer le franc symbolique. Quand il y en avait que le franc symbolique, c'est l'engagement que je prends pour son fils. Elle a dit que elle ne peut pas mettre la vie de son fils en danger. Elle ne peut pas faire le couple avec la vie de son fils. Donc, si je ne veux pas être je vais mettre la vie de son fils.
If you're a man born in a woman's body, that's biologically determined, but if you're a woman born in a woman's body, that's socially
Je vais vous donner l'avance
okay.
à mon ami là qui devait passer le chaos de son fils. Je vais donner l'avance, il est au pays là en ce moment. Je vais donner l'avance de 500 000. Et le voyage qu'on a fait pour aller là, je donne les vêtements à l'enfant là. J'ai perdu 100 livres là. Si j'avais fait la réservation pour nous partir dans le
But I think we are very quick to diagnose and treat children in a way that I find only not waiting for the research, and that's my concern.
Yeah. So, well, the lawsuits will into that in about 15 years.
So there's one place that we're planning, which that is something that gets me a lot of hate.
I'm sure it does.
A turf and a figure for that. So
Right.
I don't think that's something that you would be able to predict that I think, because that is not the orthodox feminist position.
I agree completely.
Oh, isn't that good? We've all learned something. I just wanted to talk quickly about
Si ça rentre là-bas, l'enfant lui ne fait rien, n'a rien à. L'enfant lui n'a aucun problème.
your reaction to what's
C'est
happening.
les adultes qui sont impliqués qui doivent répondre.
Well, there's certainly
Et si on peut pas pour faire
shortage of evidence for reprehensible sexual behavior on the part of people who
on peut
can
pas pour
use
faire
power to
ça,
get
c'est
power.
grand, plus bon.
So that's not so good.
Ouais, donc, mais tout ça,
The Me Too movement,
Nadège,
I
ça
suspect
passe
that
comme il est pas là.
it's intolerable. So I would say that there is a dangerous proclivity to abandon the concept of the presumption of innocence. So on university campuses, for example, we're moving towards a preponderance of evidence model. I'm not very happy with that model. I think that's a very big mistake. The presumption of innocence is nothing a miracle and we abandon
Je
it.
paye,
whether it's
c'est moi qui
through
paye. C'est moi qui
So I'm
paye.
not
Tu sais combien
happy.
c'est
I
pour
think
eux?
to
Je
believe
pense
that
pour
they
les
can
gars enfants.
is something that only
Un
a
peu
fool
chiffré.
could conjure up because it opens the door.
Parce que l'âge où l'enfant arrive là,
Unbelievable
c'est là où,
opportunity.
ça c'est l'âge du danger. C'est l'âge où il va se mettre avec des faux compagnons, avec des mauvais amis. C'est l'âge où il faut ouvrir les yeux. C'est aussi l'âge où l'enfant peut te coller les bien.
The fundamental attitude to believe the victim. So some people are arguing to
Donc,
automatically disbelieve the victim.
l'enfant est arrivé, l'enfant était stable dans le coin où on l'a placé, parce qu'il y a d'autres enfants là-bas qui ont le même âge que lui.
Okay, climate change.
La cause, c'est que le
I
monde
saw
a
you
un
posting
petit
a link to a study suggesting that a lot of the
Tout a été arrangé.
toilets
Tout était arrangé pour être fait. Ah, maintenant, la dame va demander
Well, I spent a
qu'est-ce
lot
qu'on
of
fait donc?
I don't really have beliefs about climate change. I would say. I mean, I think the climate is probably wrong. But it's been wrong since the last ice age, so I don't know.
accelerating even
Yeah, I mean, it's not so obvious. I spent quite a bit of time going through the relevant literature. I wrote about 200 books on ecological, what do they call it, or ecology and economy. I worked for the UN for about 200 years, and it's not so obvious what's happening, just like with any complex system. The problem I have fundamentally isn't really a climate change issue. It's that I find it very difficult to distinguish valid environmental claims from environmental claims that are made
Nous, on est là, on cherche la grande
secondary
erreur. Donc,
anti-capitalist.
du temps où l'enfant rentre à la maison, quand tu n'es pas au courant,
So it's so politicized that it's very difficult
tu ne sais pas là où il est allé tourner avec qui.
So I saw the line in the 12 rules which says people stricken with poverty don't care
Oui,
about
le sait,
carbon
l'enfant le
dioxide.
sait. L'enfant va arriver dans la
That's
vie.
definitely the
Et
case.
il
And I think
essaie un
that's
peu
not
de
an unreasonable point to make because if you think about
maîtriser le
Maslow's hierarchy
système
of needs, right?
environnement dans
If
lequel il
you
est
can't
commence à
eat, then
fonctionner.
actually you can't really worry about what's happening.
Où est-ce qu'il peut avoir les
However,
décalages?
I don't think that's a reason not to tackle climate change because those same people in the global south, is it the people in the global south?
À partir de l'âge de 13 ans, 14 ans, 15 ans,
Certainly the case that making energy more expensive
c'est là où
obviously
les amis le
makes things more difficult for people. So yes, it's definitely an issue. And I would say, it's kind of a conundrum for those on the left. It's like, what's it going to be? Clean air or hungry people? Like, well, we don't have to choose. It's like, okay,
Or renewable energy or nuclear power. That'd be fine. Or nuclear power.
yeah, well, it doesn't look like we're moving in that direction very
No, but
fast.
that is a solution. And
Yeah, well, the French.
yeah, I was fascinated. David Attenborough was something close to the national religion in Britain. So there's a bit where you say population control Africa, like and you compare to Eric Harris from the Common Killers. Why then is it virtuous to propose that the planet might be better off if there were fewer people on it? And I found that completely boggling that you have elided their population control from people not to be born and the mass of people who are already alive.
Population equals to.
Right, tell me more about that.
Well, what kind of statement is the planet would be better off with fewer people on it? First of all, there's an easy solution to that.
Unfortunately, much the best efforts of Elon
Parce
Musk
qu'il a
that is
formé
not
son
yet
fils
an
dès
option.
le bas âge, à l'âge de 6 ans, 7 ans, 8 ans. Et son fils devient
That's what I
ingénieur.
meant, yes. If you're very
On a tous
concerned
fait les
about your
mathématiques.
carbon
Il
footprint,
a formé son fils en maths et en anglais.
so and I think it's
Et quand il a eu
What's
l'idée,
the other-
quelqu'un lui a donné l'idée que mais ton fils peut aller dans
It's like, I don't
cette école si privée comme ça, là, il dit mais je n'ai pas l'argent, ça c'est l'école où on paye les 20 000 l'année, les 25 000 l'année. C'est l'école où, il dit que l'enfant la fréquente avec les enfants de Rooney, les enfants de Ronaldo, les enfants de qui. Même école ils vont.
virtue on a planetary scale.
Donc il entraîne son enfant comme ça, si bien que quand
It's not like we're not
il va maintenant vers l'école là, il dit que bon, j'ai mon fils ici là, il est très bon, mais moi je suis un parent pauvre. On dit ok, si il est aussi bon comme tu dis là, on peut le prendre ici et on lui donne la bourse. Là, tu vois rien à payer. C'est pour ça que l'enfant a
Well, I think
commencé
it's
à
very
l'école.
difficult to see under the current model of
Il a fini
fossil
la
fuel-based
mathématique.
capitalism.
Il est allé au
Sorry to use
collège,
that word, I know
il est
I'm
au
touchy.
But
That there,
but that is what
C'est
until
les
we
nôtres.
until we've run it, when we've run out of fossil fuel,
yeah, that's not gonna
Et
happen.
la moyenne que
it will
le
happen
travail de l'enfant,
because there
il
is
parle. Il a eu ça,
That's going to
il a
happen
eu
for 50
cette
years.
étude du travail là,
Now the United States is a
papier
net
qu'il y a-
exporter of fossil fuel.
il a
And so no
conditionné
one
comme
saw
ça.
that coming, did they? But it happened.
Et il a fait ça non seulement pour, il a fait ça pour ses deux enfants, il a une fille, il a un
China
garçon.
is putting up new
Il a fait ça pour ses
power
deux
stations,
enfants.
you know, by the bucket load.
La fille, elle est un peu plus jeune. Ouais.
Developed nations.
Le garçon a peut-être 2 ans d'avance sur la fille. Elle suit les mêmes pas. Donc si quelqu'un te dit que élever un enfant en Bénin, que c'est un jeu, bien que c'est facile, que la personne là veut te noyer.
There's every reason to assume, especially given the increases in poverty around the world at the moment. There's a bit of a bubble. There'll probably be some more extinction. What we're doing to the oceans by overfishing doesn't seem very smart, but we've only been aware of our role as planetary stewards since 1960, I would say, and we're not doing too bad for people who just woke up to the fact that we actually have planetary folks. And I don't think that we're overpopulated. I think all the arguments that all the people who made those arguments in the 1960s, like Paul Ehrlich, I think he wrote the population poem, predicted mass starvation by the year 2000. He was absolutely and completely wrong.
And we've been very lucky with things like golden rice, for example, genetic engineering of crops. I think
And
that's
it's not luck.
well, it is. I agree. There, human ingenuity is a huge part of that,
Right,
definitely.
well, and more people beyond longer, like the skeptical environmentalist who's actually gone a very long ways to try and figure out what at a planetary level that would actually be useful. Research has indicated the best possible investment is carbon taxes, cessation of utilization of carbon-based fuel. Seems right to me.
Vous voulez le corrompre pourquoi elle enlève Landry et qu'elle laisse seulement Gabriel dedans?
La dernière fois où j'avais voulu qu'on cause là, c'est que j'avais causé avec l'ingénieur avait dit que de vous trois, comme c'est ça un problème, prenez donc le titre foncier là, vous mettez au nom de la maman. Là, vous allez vous sentir concerné. Elle est tombée d'accord. C'est pour ça que j'avais demandé qu'on essaie de causer.
Quand tu penses que Nadia, je pourrais mettre son nom de la main.
To role models that is necessary for the continuity of maternal behavior or for the adoption of functional gender roles. And so that's the very obvious
Est-ce que tu accepteras que oui,
be raised with two people
et
of
dans le
the
fond,
same sexes. Maybe not.
elle n'est pas dans ton oui là?
Right. So there doesn't seem to be any evidence so far. That's what all of the literature review suggests, that absolutely there were a couple that were show problems, but they were in couples that were already broken down, right? So there is no evidence. Maybe there will be some time, but at the moment there is no evidence that there is any problem with having gay parents.
I never said there was. Somebody asked me, I believe it was a question like, if there was a problem, what would it be? Or something like that. No, I mean, you can make a very strong conservative case for gay marriage, I think. I mean, not that I would necessarily be motivated to make a conservative argument.
David Cameron, our former Prime Minister, said I'm support gay marriage because I'm. So,
Yes, right. So, it's obviously homosexuality is it's been around forever. So what's the appropriate social response to that? Well, conceivably bringing as many people as possible into something approximately the same game. I think you can make a reasonable case for that. What's the consequence of that for children and those families? I don't know. I mean, what I would say is that the obvious risk is that there's no one of the opposite sex of that. It doesn't take the perception of genius to come up with the observation that that might be a problem. Maybe it's not. And my suspicions are there's probably far more relevant problems with regards to what happens to children that isn't good than that.
So this is a way in which, that is now conservative tradition as a whole. I think it's 20 years ago that would have been mainstream.
Well, people were concerned with the deterioration of marriage and believed that explanations would further weaken. And I think that that's not an unreasonable position, given how weak it's become. And I don't think that that's been good overall.
Okay, let's talk about free speech to finish on. You write in your book about Nietzsche, who became the Nazis' favourite intellectual, and you also talk about a professor.
Only through his sister's mistranslations of his work.
Right, but you talk a little bit as well about another professor whose ideas you sort of led inevitably to Maoism, and you said, I don't know, we can't be more worried about where his ideas lead. Do you worry about where where your work might be taken on these young people? I saw you posted with with a Pepe flag.
Can't believe you brought that up.
Right, but I just think it's
Seriously, I can't believe you brought that up. You should go online.
yeah, I do.
It's called It's Jordan Peterson, Darling of the Alt-Right. Have you watched the video of the person who put up that Pepe flag with me? He's online.
But I have watched, I have seen, you wouldn't, I would say,
Then why are you concerned about Pepe? He disappeared like 3 years ago.
it is,
And most of that was trolling by young guys who were trying to drag the media into idiot accusations like the idea that this was a white supremacist gesture, which I was asked about on CBC. Like, no, it wasn't. It was Fortran trolls playing the media for fools, which were much of the people was that as well.
okay, but the problem with people ironically pretend to be Nazis on the internet.
They weren't pretending to be
But no, this is a separate phenomenon, and 4chan definitely do ironically pretend to be one of the worst things they can possibly be. Is that some people take that very seriously. There was a case in America recently of a guy who stabbed his father because he had thought that his father was a Democrat. He got better, he was writing stuff for a conservative website. He got very into Pizzagate conspiracy theories. Right, so there are people who take this very, very seriously and they latch onto it.
What's your point?
I'm saying that, how much responsibility do you think you have? Think about the old right, as you say, some of them have enjoyed your work and some of them haven't. I'm not one of you guys, I'm not with you.
They haven't enjoyed my work.
I've definitely read bits of it.
Read more.
Okay.
Find some evidence. I'm extraordinarily sick and tired of this particular accusation / line of questioning. I'm no fan of the identitarian right, the ethno-nationalists, the alt-right. First of all, what do you mean by alt-right exactly? Do you mean ethno-nationalists? Do you mean white supremacists?
No, I mean people who are on the right but have got their power base outside the traditional media. They see themselves as an alternative. So I see them
That's a
coming
pretty
out
loose
through
definition
that
of the
string.
alt-right.
Rush Limbaugh kind of talk radio, right? People who see themselves in opposition to an
Rush Limbaugh is
establishment.
not the alt-right. He's been around for 30 years.
Right, so he's the progenitor of what I see now, Breitbart and things like that, are the new media version of that very old media.
Well, let's define what constitutes alt-right first.
Yeah,
For me,
you-
they're
everything
ethno-nationalists. They tend to be white
I think the
supremacists.
power
Generally, people target the alt-right epithet. The reason they're doing that is to associate me with those people. They don't like me. And the reason for that is that I've made it very clear, not only in my videos, but on Twitter, that I don't like them. I don't like their anti-Semitism. I don't like their use of identity politics. I don't think I think that their narrative is something like, everybody's going to play identity politics, we're going to play it too. We're going to win. And I can certainly understand that motivation, but I think it's a bad game all around. And I think the only reason that I was ever associated in any sense whatsoever with anything to do with the alt-right was because it was extremely convenient of the radical leftists, who I fundamentally detest, to paint me as a representative of that people.
Right.
Other than that, zero. Now,
Okay, but that's not what I did. You say, so at no point did I say you were
well, you brought up the whole
right,
thing.
but I did bring that. But there was a reason I did that, which is that Nietzsche himself said I'm an anti-empty Semite, right? And yet his ideology is intellectual. So my question
No, I don't finish till quarter past.
It's meant to be tomorrow.
Quarter past to finish.
I take as much
Wait, he's not ready to take again.
which is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
La cliente ne fait que
I'm talking to
demander que si c'est
I'm putting out content.
regardez si c'est maintenu, si ça va être fait. Je dis que c'est important.
Every single
Huh?
I've sent these students in a professional capacity since 1992.
Voilà.
And despite the fact that I have innumerable, highly motivated enemies, they haven't been able to find one thing I've said in 30 years that justifies any of those accusations, or any other accusations for that matter. So it's It's quite the phenomenon. I mean, I understand it to some degree, you know,
So,
because
sorry, about the Pepe bags, even out in the States, why did you post with it? What were your reasons for doing it? Did people just come up and bring it to you and
yeah, I was like posing with. I've probably been photographed with, I don't know, 5,000 people in the last 2 years, and you know, it's one after the other, often in groups of 100, 150, 200 people, and it's like 15 seconds.
right?
And they brought this flag. One of them had spoken at the event. They were doing it ironically. They unfurled the flag, and we took a picture, and that was that.
Would you have posed ironically with a hammer and sickle flag?
I don't know under the circumstances what I would have done. I have all sorts of Soviet art in my house.
Right. Because anybody could get caught out, and social embarrassment is a huge factor, and you don't want to kind of tell people who've been very nice to you that actually you don't want to do the thing. I just wonder if that's something that you regret now, that you wouldn't do again if you have the opportunity.
Well, I don't think it did me any good. I don't think I'll betray my former self. We'll just leave it where it is. I made the decision that I made under the circumstances and took what was there into consideration. I think that the Pepe formulators did a wonderful job of trolling the standard media. I don't think that they were what everyone presumed them to be.
I think they did a wonderful job of trolling you as well, at the same time, recruiting you and your image and your appeal to people to their kind of cause, which is ironic.
I don't really think so.
But it's not that.
I think that,
Underneath it all, I don't find it very ironic, actually.
what don't you find ironic?
But a lot of the kind of 4chan culture, which is saying, I'm just going to say the worst possible thing that I can say just to prove that I can say it because free speech is still alive, I think that in itself is quite poisonous to the discourse. I think I try and conduct myself online in a relatively civilized manner. I do not always succeed, but I do not think just going into a room and screaming epithets is something that I need to do on a daily basis to prove that free speech isn't dead, right?
I think people probably agree that that's a reasonable.
A rare note of consensus. But I have to come back to the free speech idea because I think that whole idea of the intellectual dark web, and this came up a couple of times at your event on Thursday, is predicated on the idea that you have been marginalised for your opinions or oppressed for
It's
your
not
opinions.
predicated on my claim of that.
Right. It's predicated on.
I don't know. I'm not claiming I've been marginalized. I would never use that word, first of all, that's for sure.
So, but the idea of a dark.
I don't feel oppressed.
Good. I'm pleased to hear it. But I do think that the way that you got the cheers from that crowd was very much about there was an idea of taboo breaking, right? This is a microaggression, but I'm going to say it anyway. But hard work is the way to succeed. And I thought that was fascinating because to me you don't look like somebody who has particularly suffered an outrageous amount for your opinions. People certainly disagree. They've been rude. They've in some cases.
The only reason I haven't suffered an outrageous amount for my opinions is because I've handled the consequence of their utterance exceptionally well. My job was at risk. My family stability was at risk. So I wouldn't push that one too far.
What was your job at risk?
Jesus, last year 200 of my fellow faculty members signed a petition to get me fired. That was only one of a dozen things that happened. The university wrote me 2 cease and desist letters from their HR departments with their legal staff. 3 of those even done. They just fired Rick Maida in Canada at Acadia University for talking about many of the same things that I've talked about. So the fact that I've come through this relatively unscathed has very little to do with the vitriol of the attacks. There was plenty of motivation to take me out. It just didn't work.
Right. And I think the fact that it didn't work to me makes me ultimately optimistic about where we are because
Why?
I went on, I did a panel a while ago with Zarganar, a Burmese comedian who was in prison for making a video, right? And we are not yet at that stage. I think undoubtedly I did not.
Alors, il faut qu'on pas que ce soit, on dit que l'eau, bouteille minérale, premièrement, comme on arrête. plastique, vous absorberez des microfibres de plastique. Alors, il y en a aussi dans l'eau du robinet parce qu'il y en a partout, mais il y en a 2 fois moins dans certaines études. Donc,
I didn't say it was a good joke. I didn't say it was an appropriate joke.
aller absorber des microfibres de plastique, c'est
I didn't say it was a well-thought through joke. But it wasn't a joke.
Yeah, I just fundamentally not don't believe that it was a joke. I believe that it was camouflaged as a joke, and that's what it kind of came across.
Right,
And I
well,
believe
that's exactly what you would believe if you were inclined to persecute comedians.
No, I'm not inclined to persecute someone.
Well, you were inclined to persecute him.
I don't think he's a comedian, and I don't think I would have to go look at the circumstances of that case, but I think
He didn't like his girlfriend's hug and thought he would teach you to do something reprehensible as a joke.
right. But I see you getting involved, say, using Douglas Murray's article about Tommy Robinson, and I think you see that as a free speech issue, and that's not how I see Tommy Robinson's case at all. I see that as contempt of court, someone who endangered a grooming trial. How do you see that case?
I see it as very fortunate that Tommy Robinson didn't die in prison.
I think I would say that about a lot of people in prison. I think it's very hard to be in prison if you are a sex offender, for example. I think British prisons are less inhumane than American prisons, but they're still brutal places to be. However, I do think that was an appropriate punishment for somebody who tried to collapse a grooming trial.
Oh.
But are you? And I guess are you a prison abolitionist?
No.
Oh right, okay. So you do believe that some people there are offences for which people need to go to prison.
Why would you ask me a question like that?
Well,
Do I
just
look like
interested.
someone who isn't interested in meeting out appropriate punishment?
No, but I just thought maybe I was making an assumption about you, and I didn't want to make an assumption about you. I'm just going to end with a quick fire round. So I know that this is YouTube, so we have been able to talk for a really long time, but I just want quick answers from you. Who is your favourite author?
Dostoevsky.
Who's your favourite female author?
Margaret Lawrence, I think.
I don't know.
She's a Canadian author. Kind of an antidote to Margaret Atwood in my estimation.
Okay. When did you last cry?
Oh God, who knows? Last week, probably.
Who is your smartest opponent? Debate about atheism with them and about rationality.
Yeah, I don't really regard him exactly as an opponent. You know, I mean, we disagree on things. I don't really tend to think of people as opponents, generally. I mean, but Harris is...
You know what, love?
Yes, fine, thank you.
Making his case, and so that's been interesting.
What big question don't you know the answer to?
What big question do I know the answer to? Oh God, that's a tough one. There's so many of them. Well, personally, it's what I should do in 2 years.
When did you last change your mind about something important?
I'm changing my mind about things all the time. Every time I do a lecture, I change my mind about something.
Something important, something big.
Oh, well, I can tell you, I mean, one thing I've learned in the last 2 years is that I think I overestimated, there's an obesity epidemic in North America, perhaps throughout the Western world. I think I overestimated the degree to which that was a consequence of a sedentary lifestyle and overestimated the degree to which a lack of discipline was contributing to it. I think much more now that it's an illness.
Well, those are two different things, aren't they? Discipline is self-control, and illness is something else.
Well, let's say you're over it, you should exercise. It's like, well, actually the evidence that exercise will thin you down isn't that great. And maybe the reason that you're not exercising is because you're ill, not that you're ill because you're not exercising. So I have a lot more sympathy for the hypothesis that the obesity epidemic is actually a consequence of an illness, of a broad scale. Illness isn't exactly right. It's a dietary problem, fundamentally, and there are deep causes for that.
Are you still eating your all-beef diet?
Unfortunately, yes.
Really, just beef. Not, can you have like ketchup on it?
Nothing. You're right. Yes, it isn't something I would likely recommend. It's a little hard on your social life. makes traveling quite difficult and it's dull as hell. But
What has it done for you?
well, I lost 50 pounds in 7 months. I stopped snoring. I had some autoimmune conditions that seem to be gone away. I'm not taking antidepressants. My heart is properly regulated, but I'm under a fair bit of stress, so that might have something to do with it. I sleep much less. I can work more. I don't have there's any evidence that I don't think we have any idea what causes arteriosclerosis. I think all of the dietary is rubbish. And that partly because it's unbelievably difficult to do proper dietary studies. You can't do controlled studies, so it's all correlational, and there's so many variables. I think the correlational studies are useless. So, also this all beef diet has apparently cured my daughter. So, and that's, well, that was the original diagnosis, then it was idiopathic, which means we don't know what it is now. Yeah, but she's completely symptom free. So, that sort of thing makes you sit up and take notice because it doesn't make any sense.
When was the last time you lied? The book says no lying. You still lie?
Everybody lies.
As Dr. House himself told us. What is most
But I'm
important?
pretty damn careful about it.
What is most important to you in life?
Not being stupid.
How would you like?
Making foolish mistakes. Not being incautious.
That's tough on yourself.
Sounds tough, man.
Right. How would you like to feel different if you were female?
Multiple orgasms.
Not a bad one. What's your biggest regret?
Heat defense spray for your hair.
The opportunity to learn to play the organ when I was 7.
If that's your biggest regret, that's going to be a great deathbed.
That's the only good one.
Yeah, well, you know, I would have liked, it would have been better for me if I would have been a better musician.
Wow.
And finally, how would you like to be remembered?
It's very important. Yeah, it's very important. You might not have seen it before.
As someone honest,
Dr. Joe Beeson, thank you very much.
The one that you had before, how was it? Was it like a detangling spray? Yeah. This one here,
I've got the leading condition one. I've got the defense. I'll just get these inside. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just 340.
Thank you. Is there a hairdresser next door, is there?
Yeah, next door here,
Yeah.
652.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much. Thank you.
Collaborations I'd already done with No Jumper about a couple of months ago. And the thing is, I want to get out and talk to as many people who are not used to what I say, because many people are getting introduced to me off of clips, and you really can't kind of gauge anything off a clip other than what they want you to gauge. So I'm like, well, if you're gonna say something like I say, even on my show, you need to take it to as many people, friendly or not, and be able to have a conversation. And if nothing else, you get credit for at least showing up and having a convo. So
Well, I have to be honest with you. I've spoken to a few people to let them know that I was doing this interview. Some of them were women.
Yeah.
And boy, were they angry about it.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, they killed me. They kicked my ass. So, I love you. I love everybody. But how do you feel? Do you know do you know that feeling is out there?
I know that feeling exists for a vocal minority. What I also know is I get the videos of women saying, "Thank you, Kevin Samuels, for saving my marriage. Kevin Samuels is the reason I'm engaged." And if you watch my show instead of the clips, you'll see women all the time coming on saying, "You know what, when I first heard you, I didn't know what to think about it, but I sat back and I listened to it myself, end to end, and I can't deny I agree with a lot of things you're saying. I've even tried some of these things and I'm a better friend, a better daughter, better sister, a better cousin, a better wife, a better girlfriend. My current generations, my future generations, thank you." So I'll take any of the critics because what they don't do, they don't come and actually talk to me when I have my smoke show. I open it up at least every 30 to 45 days and say, "And you have plenty of notice. Come on." What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Fit Podcast. We got a special guest in the house, Andrew fucking Tate, man. The legend. Miami. Fresh and Fit. Let's get into it, baby. Fresh and Fit, baby. Fresh and Fit. Let's get it, man.
Off the yacht to the studio. Bro, I was on a plane for 2 days. I slept 4 hours in 3 days. Then I was on the yacht with you guys. Now we're in the studio. But it's okay. I run on pure adrenaline. This is what it is, man. I run on pure adrenaline.
You guys asked for this?
You guys asked for it?
And now you have it here.
It's here.
Literally the most requested person to come on the Fresh and Fit Podcast, Andrew fucking Tate.
In the building.
I can say with absolute certainty, in my life, I have never disappointed. So, buckle up, right? I'm keeping my glasses on as eye protection. Because we're coming hard today.
Oh, man. All right, let's hit these super chats real quick. We're going to get right into it.
We posted the video early this morning. We got super chat right away.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Seriously, man. Mike Liff, please buy that Cobra a drink or two at Moxie's on my behalf. He is a case study on what the male mindset should be. Salute to you all from right down the street. Hashtag Brickle, aka the Bricks. Thank you so much,
man.
Thank you, Mike. $100 super chat from Kendall the Man. Subscribe to you guys after the Think Before You Sleep video slamming those OF girls you had on who think they're the reason y'all get paid. Here's to proving it wrong. Thank you so much for that, bro. And then Elvin, $5 Australian. I bet this finishes with 150K subs. Absolutely, bro. Thank you so much all the way from down under. Coco Puff, $20. Tate, what would you do if you had to fight John Jones or Israel Adesanya at the UFC fighters? What would be your plan of attack and defense?
What would I have? What would I do if I had to? Then I'd fight them. What do you mean? You know what? So many people are obsessed, especially in the fight game, with game plans. And Mike Tyson said it perfectly, didn't he? Everyone has a game plan till they're punched in the face. So I would train as hard as I could possibly train. I'd be in the best shape I could possibly be, and I'd get in there with the intention of fucking him up. So I don't want to swear. With the intention of winning, right? Not enough people approach things in life with absolute tenacity. And if you approach anything in your life and you destroy the idea that you could possibly fail, which sounds easy, right? But you could do well. If a man told you he could rip your head off with his little finger, and you could tell he really, really believed it, would you want him to try?
No.
You'd be like, no, that little, maybe. I don't know, this guy is way too convinced. You know what I'm saying? So if I had to fight John Jones, I don't care if I had to fight a mountain, I don't care if I had to fight a lion or an alien, whatever. If it's on, it's on. If it's on, then it's on. So I'm coming to win, I ain't coming to lose.
Exactly.
So that's how it goes.
It's a fighter spirit right there.
All right.
Lazino 44, 23 euros, 23.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. Know you're worth $5. Looks lit, guys. Fresh. Check your Telegram DMs. Okay, cool. And we will do that. Brody, $5. What's up, fellas? Cheers to a great podcast and hit my email back.
Oh yeah, he wants to do an internship.
Okay, so we'll hit you back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. We've been getting spammed by emails and people hitting us up since we've been growing so much. Thank you so much for the growth. We've just been so busy, man. Obviously, we got Tate in the house, so he's been the priority right now.
Priority always.
Showing him a good time has been priority.
Yeah.
Matasuki, $20. Best podcast in the world, over 9,000.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man.
Tony Parker, $4.99. I'm looking forward to joining y'all's highest tier Patreon. I gotta put my glass on.
You join that higher tier, you come in the studio. We got one of our boys here. I'll shout out to him in the studio as well, Kaiser. So yeah, man, $20 tier, VIP. You can chill with us.
Blake Ocean, $5. Tate, greatest to ever do it. Welcome to America. And this is his first time in Miami. I didn't know that.
It's my first time in Miami. I've never been to Miami before.
You know,
I'm feeling the Miami spirit. You know, I've already got the Colombian drug lord shirt and the big cigar.
Shout out Scarface.
Some money. I can feel it. I can get it.
There you go.
Lazino again, $23.99. Shout out to Tate from East London. Keep up the good work. And Tate, never seen Star Wars.
Never.
Keep your movie. Yeah,
Never
absolutely.
seen Star Wars.
I've never seen it either.
Why would I watch that? You think I've got a life to live?
Oh man.
My dick works. You think I'm gonna be sitting there looking at what in a galaxy, little teddy bears, some dude in a mat? This is lame. This is lame. I would deal with Darth Vader. I'd show Darth Vader force he ain't ready for it. Bust him up. He ain't ready for me. He ain't ready
King
for me.
Kristen, shout out to the #1 podcast for men and lifestyle. Thanks for coming on, Tate. We're going 0 to 100K now fast. Speeding the catch is real. They better keep watching. Fact.
Thank you, Chris.
And then Loner XZ, $5. Don DeMarco, please, and happy birthday, Clyde. Didn't forget B-Day, 429. Can he get the DVT power-up? Still a ninja now, part of the Fresh Fit Village. Thank you so much for that. All right. And then I think Money Strokes, $10. Love the channel, man. Y'all be having me laughing hard as fuck. And when y'all gonna have Stevis Cold on the podcast, keep grinding. Hey, man, tell Steph to hit us up. He knows where we're at.
Yep.
And then Blake Ocean, $5. After this interview, you'll see that Tate is on another level and has proof for all of it. Absolutely, guys.
Yeah.
Tate is the real deal, and he's here
my
for a
best.
reason.
I do my best. You know, I'm a man. I try to live by receipts. I try and show what I'm doing.
No fire today, haha. Just love, keep it go, do it.
Thank you, Papa Chunks.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you, brother.
Papa Chunks. And Trey won't make fun of you and the Warriors anymore. Ken Festi, Porter, and guys, we're gonna have to read 15 and up from this point forward because we want to make sure that we don't
15
interrupt. We got a lot to talk about with Andrew,
Yeah.
guys. So thank you so much. Chris will continue to show the super chats.
But 50 and up.
But 50 or 15.
50.
Okay, 50 and up, guys.
This is
going to
important.
this is going to be a big interview. What's good, Fresh and Fit? I just discovered you guys a couple weeks ago. I like the content you doing your thing because these women need to hear this stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. They do need to hear this. And then finally, Ben Francis, all the way from Canada. Shout out from Concord, Canada. We appreciate you, Tate. So,
man, so
before we start, sorry, I don't want to try and take control of the podcast.
No, you're the guest, bro.
From both sides. Why am I the only one working? Where's your mom?
You know what?
Oh, here we go.
We drank on the boat for you. Now we're here in the studio for you.
Listen, let me tell you something. I drank the entire 24-hour flight.
You know what? Throw me a white claw. This is a special occasion. Throw me a white claw.
What, a bag of brown beads?
I'll take a white claw for tea.
Yeah. Can you guys throw us a white claw real quick? It's gonna be like
Yeah.
How many do you want?
She's only to put a couple of wefts in. So don't need a great deal.
We're considered the best hosts in the manosphere. It's because we take care of all of our guests, even if it means us destroying our livers in the process.
We all go down together. And gentlemen, I guarantee you my liver's worse than yours, all right? I live on booze. So booze powers me.
Where's mine?
And then, so I'll say this. So Andrew, for those that don't know who you are,
Got
that
some,
are living
yeah.
under a rock, can you please
Dark
tell
brown
us
one.
who Andrew Tate is?
Okay, well, I've lived an eclectic life, right? So I've
Yeah,
lived
don't you have the little bags?
I like to think the reason I'm so wise.
I normally
is
get the
because I've
bags
lived
off
1,000
you.
years.
Yeah, I'll get
So I've done a
them
lot of
all
different
back.
things. I've been broke, I've been rich.
Oh, was it not? Well, that's 12 quid.
Professional athlete. I was a
Yeah,
webcam
have you
kid.
looked at
I've
your
done it all. So I'll give you the very, very short version of my life story. My father was the greatest black chess player in history. He was a
I love
master of
him,
the
mate.
game. So when I was growing up, from a very young age, from the age of
You love
around
what?
3, I was trained to
I
become
like
a chess
him, mate.
grandmaster. I was on track to be
Why?
a chess grandmaster.
What's
by the
wrong
age of
with
around
you?
12.
What do you mean,
When
what's
I was
wrong with me?
5,
I believe everything
I
he
became
says.
the state chess
No, you
champion
don't.
for
I do.
Indiana in the under 16s. I was the
Why are you watching him
youngest to ever
then?
win it.
I
I remember I was
watch him
5 years
because
old.
it's hard to find that many women who like it.
I like him. I like him. I think he talks the truth.
Women just call him names.
Well, women call every man names. Have you got what dice have you got? Have you looked? Is that the only dice of his?
No,
you have the proper dice. Sleepy little Goshen, Indiana. My mother and father split up. My mother was English, so we all went back to England. I was around 11. And in England, there's no chess, not like in America, right? And I also lost my coach because my dad stayed here.
Right at the end.
So
I get
for sleepy years I was in school or whatever, and then I decided I wanted to replace chess with something. And to me, the closest possible thing I could find was fighting. People say, how can you go from chess, which is geeky, to get in the cage and smashing someone's face in? But to me, they're exactly the same thing, right? In most sports, there's a degree of luck. Like in poker, I don't care how good it is. All you poker players, you all fucking, oh, I play poker. I don't care how good you are. If every single hand you get is trash, you're going to lose.
Yep.
And if you keep getting pocket aces, you're going to win, right? So there's a degree of luck.
Facts.
Or if you play a team sport, your team can have a good day or a bad day, and that'll affect how the outcome of the game, regardless of how you perform, right? So I wanted something just like chess, where there's no luck. It's just me, one-on-one, brutal, war, trying to hurt someone. I wanted to make someone else cry, like that 16-year-old bitch cried. So I thought, I might as well learn to start punching people in the face. So I started training. Kickboxing is what I started doing. I had a few live cage fights, and I was offered a contract for the largest kickboxing organization in Holland. And they were the kings of kickboxing at the time, and they paid more than MMA, and I needed to pay the bills. So I signed up to kickboxing. I gave up MMA, and I became 4-time kickboxing world champion.
Just a chocolate brown.
Best in the world for a long time, 87 fights, been everywhere, done everything, and then fighting was doing well, but the problem was with kickboxing, it's not boxing, right? So even though I was the world champion, I mean, I had money, but I didn't have money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was getting, let's say, $100,000 a fight, but I was fighting twice a year, $200,000 a year, pay your taxes and stuff. You're not balling.
Yeah.
You're not
And then you got
balling.
to pay your promoter.
Yeah, you got to pay your promoter 20%, and there's no, and the lifestyle's boring, right? So all you do is train. I mean, I was still smashing through women. Of course, there's not, because I always found that I was pretty good at that, and it was relatively cheap. But I woke up one day and thought, I give this 6 hours of energy a day. 6 hours of my life a day is dedicated to kicking the shit out of people. I'm 4-time world champion. Is becoming 5-time world champion going to really improve my life? Probably not.
Right.
So I'm going to take all that energy and dedicate it towards getting rich. And through a crazy series of events, I ended up owning a webcam studio.
Hey.
I ended up owning a webcam studio and became a multimillionaire. And here I am now. I'm officially an ultra high net worth individual in excess of 30 million. So I gave up fighting to get rich. And now I'm rich, and I'm on the Fresh and Fit podcast. And that's the story. That's the story. That's how it went.
There you go. This is the #1 dating podcast in the world.
Yep, and definitely the #1 podcast in Miami, and we're going to take over soon to become the #1 podcast in the world.
Hell
so,
yeah.
Andrew, so they got to know you a little bit as far as, you know, where you're from and everything, because a lot of people think that you're not American.
Yeah, I'm
And
American.
You were born here.
I was born here. I've got an American passport. I'm American. And I live right now. I currently live in Romania. And everyone goes, why Romania? Are you Romanian or is your family
Let's
Romanian?
talk about that real quick.
See,
I know they're going to ask, Andrew, why are you going to Romania? Well, can you tell, well, what's safe for YouTube, I guess?
Yeah. I was in England. I got tired of England. I had to decide to move somewhere. And I'd fought in Romania a few times. And I decided to go to... In fact, I'll tell you this whole story. Yeah. All right, let me tell you the whole story. Let me tell out in public.
Let's go down memory lane.
Let's go down. Let me give out all my world secrets. Because I'm on my biggest podcast yet, so I might as well tell all my secrets, right?
There you go.
So, this is a long story, right? So I had to
Right, I've not got
so
pound
a lot of
coins,
people
I've
were
got
very curious
these.
about how webcam business
Sorry about
works. So
that.
basically,
It's,
I was sitting there after I retired from fighting. I thought I had to get rich.
Have you not got no
I'm
quids?
googling up and I'm
No, I need
researching,
to
like,
go
what
to
is
the bank.
money? How does a central bank? Because I thought, if I want money,
Cheers,
first
see you
thing is to
later.
understand what money is. Most people don't know what money is. Right? How does money work? How does a bank work? Where does money come from? So I started going down the rabbit hole. And the more I learned about money, the more mad I got. So I realized it's trash. And fiat ain't real. And they just burn it from the sky. So I'm like, not only is it garbage, I don't have any. I don't have any garbage. What? So I was furious, right? So I'm watching this YouTube video, and they're talking about assets, liabilities, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there trying to find a way to get rich, and I decided to write down all my assets on a piece of paper. I had like a Range Rover, I had an apartment on a mortgage, I had like 10 grand in the bank, that's it. So I'm writing down my assets. I knew I was big and strong, but I was already fighting. And then when I was writing down assets, I realized with my fight career, because I was traveling the world, all I do is, because I always win, I'm sexy. When you win, it's almost like a given, right? The ring girl's yours. When you win, you smash. Like, they ain't fucking a loser. But if you win, so I had all these girlfriends. I had girlfriends in France, Slovakia, Germany, all these hot chicks. And they thought I was the big millionaire world champion, right? They thought I was living in London with a Ferrari, and I'm still texting them, and they thought I was living the big life.
Bam.
So I was like, well, I could open a strip club, but that takes money. You know, I need overhead, I need money. How can I use these women to make me money? I don't want to put them on the track, because they're my women. I don't want other people touching my chicks. And by coincidence, I'm just Googling things up, and I discovered this webcam website. And I'd never heard of webcam before. This is a long time ago as well. It wasn't as big as it is now. Now everyone knows about OnlyFans, all this shit. Like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever this was, it wasn't nearly as big. And I found this little webcam thing, and I was like, this might be some money. So I text all my girlfriends, I think it was 5 of them, text all 5, said, you're all coming here to live with me and work with me. None of them knew about each other. Bro, Tristan will tell you the story. He'll tell you. All 5 flew in, picked them all up. They're all sitting there, sitting around the same table. Bro, I need to get paid. Right? I'm broke now. I'm retired from fighting. I have no money. I'm running out of money. So I put them all around the same table, and I was like, look, we're going to start a webcam business. You're going to stay here. You're going to live in London. I'm going to look after you, and we're going to get rich. We're going to be a team. And they're all like, well, who's this bitch? I'm like, she's my girlfriend, she's my girlfriend, she's my girl. You're all my chicks. And you're going to stay here, and we're going to make some money. Big fight kicks off, blah, 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 blah. In the end, long story short, 3 left, 2 stayed. Those were my first 2 girls. And we started this little webcam business from my apartment. And it just grew and grew and grew. And it got to the point where at one point I had 75 women working for me in 4 locations. And I was doing $600,000 a month from webcam. So
this is in the UK.
This is in the UK. This is in the UK. So, but this leads into the story of why I moved to Romania. So at the height of my webcam pimping, I think I'm the king of the world, right? I have all these women, da-da-da. But the problem is, my first 2 girls who worked for me because they loved me. I love this man. I am with this man. We're a team. He's going to take me from the ghetto streets to the hotel suites. Right? So we're working together. But then once you get bigger, you start hiring girls who don't love you. They're in it for the money. So I had a whole bunch of girls working for me who weren't really about it. And then I had one girl, and she got too drunk one day, and she threw up in my apartment. I told her to clean up. She refused to clean up, started being an idiot. So I took her stuff, threw out the window. Because it's just like, it's about that. With women, you never hit a girl, right? Can't do that. But if
we learned that the hard way last week.
But if all the other girls see me be disrespected, they're going to lose respect for me.
Facts.
Right? Yep. So when she's like, I ain't cleaning that up, you get that. So I was like, look, I don't care. And she was my biggest earning girl. She made me on her own maybe $25,000 a month.
Oh, shit.
So I didn't want to fire her. And she knew I didn't want to fire her, which is more reason why I had to fire her ass. So I was like, all right, cool. You want to be a gangster? Right, you're a gangster. Got her shit. We're like high up. We're like high up like here. It was just out the window. So first out the window. Got her by her 2 arms and marched her out the door, locked the door, end of it. She starts texting me, you owe me my last month's wages, you owe me my money, give me my money. Then I text her back, I ain't paying you nothing, you threw up my blah, 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 blah. She went to the police.
Oh, shit.
And told the police I hit her when I didn't. Whoa. So it's 5 in the morning, and this is about 4 months later. 5 in the morning, 4 months later, I'm laying in bed. Girl here, chilling, living the life. And I heard the door, boom, 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 boom. And I don't know how I knew, I just knew it was police. The way they knocked that door, I was like, if you were going to rob me, you kick the door in, or this is just too obvious. And as soon as I heard that noise, I just paused for a second, I heard, police! And I was like, But I didn't know what it was for, right? But there's a few things I can't say in the podcast. I've lived a varied life. Right, I've done some things when I had to pay the bills.
Right.
So I was a bit like, what's this going to be? So I flush my phone down the toilet quickly. Shit, I'm coming. So I'm trying to hide shit. I'm looking around. What do I do? Eventually, the door comes off the hinges. Boom. Police bust in. Yeah. Fully armored, helmet. Boom. The guy in the back had a clipboard of me standing there after one of my fights with the world title belt, and they sent like the big man squad, like the crazy man. Yeah. All the officers were like 6'6". Yeah. The big boys came.
Damn. They sent all the niggas to get you.
Yeah, the British niggas. They the big boys. I'm standing there like, okay. So I was like, who are you? They're like, you're under arrest for a suspicion of assault of this dumb hoe. And I'm like, wait, is it dumb hoe? They didn't. But I'm gonna protect her. And anonymity because I'm a nice guy. Dumb hole. So I was like, I didn't touch that dumb hole.
Yeah.
And the police were like, well, look, don't talk to us. We just have to bring you in, talk to the investigator. So I went to the investigator. They kept me in a cell for a day and a half. They sent officers to raid my house, took all my electronics, took all my phones, all my laptops, went through my entire personal life, found 11 new things to raise charges against me for, unrelated, because the original case got dropped. Because she had no evidence and she was lying. Because all the other girls in the house went to on my behalf
and testified against her.
She's lying.
Yeah, right.
So like, okay, but we've been through his life. He has a Lambo and a bunch of pussy, and he's enjoying himself, and that's not allowed in the Western world.
Yeah.
So we've been through his life, and we found 11 new reasons to raise crap against him. So I had 11 new charges, blah, 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 and I just woke up one day and said, I cannot live in this kind of. I will not live under a government that will do this to me when I've done nothing wrong. So I had to leave and go somewhere, and by coincidence, I had a fight coming up in Romania, so I went and fought in Romania. I just thought, you know what? I'll hang around here for a few months. And then boom, 5 years later, I'm still there. So that's the long buried story of how I ended up in Romania.
See,
That's where I'm
we're laughing about it, but just the power of one girl that is disgruntled or doesn't like you anymore, but a phone call can ruin your whole life.
Bro, it sounds, yeah, we laugh now and it's a joke now, right? But I was in a police cell looking at police time, right? I spent $450,000 on legal fees keeping my ass straight. So even though I was completely innocent of the original charge, even though the police said to me, yes, we know she lied, but now we've been through your entire personal life, we got new reasons to mess with you. Let me tell you something, if you're watching this and you're a man, if the police forensically analyze your life, you've done something wrong. It doesn't matter if you had a yard sale and didn't pay tax. Doesn't matter if you made a video while driving. You have done something. And if they really want to get you, they're going to get you, right? And because of who I am and my persona, and because they saw me living a particular lifestyle through my phone, they see me with like 5 naked pictures and shit. They just like, we don't like this man. We want him to go to jail. So when people say there's no agenda against men, there was. I sat in the police station with 2 dyke female officers who wanted to put me away purely because I was sexy and successful. That is it. And it's all over now, so I can talk about it, right? But for a long time, it was a serious source of stress because of one dumb hoe drinking too much wine. Unbelievable.
Dude, on our show,
bro, we had some crazy chick on our joint.
Yeah, the Jamaican girl in the green, she came on the show, right? We had 2 girls here. Her friend got kicked out. She wanted to stay. She didn't want to leave. We said, no, get out. 30, 40 minutes, she's standing there looking dumb as hell. Like, oh, I'm not leaving unless you bring my shoes here. Long story short,
we said no.
Yeah, we said no. Maya put her stuff aside. Like, you know how you put her stuff aside?
I didn't even throw it. I put it nicely. I should have done Andrew Tate. Like, she was like, you know what I'm saying?
Fixed it up. Let's go outside. We're recording the whole thing. She says, hey, you know what? If you don't bring my shoes here, I'm not leaving, blah, blah, blah. We call security. Security brings her stuff, escorts her out. And we know, we go about our day. I'm at a club. He's home chilling with a chick. Next thing you know, right? I get a phone call from Myron. Hey, the police are here. I'm like, what? For what? Like, I'm in the club with this chick, like, I'm partying, yeah, lit. All I know is police are there because of what this girl said. So she called.
She made an allegation that we stole $1,700
from her purse that we put aside $1,700. Now, Andrew, you see the studio, right? Why would we need to steal money from a girl?
They just lie. They fabricate.
And look,
and the thing is about the law in the West, because they don't want to discourage females from coming forward in the case of genuine injustice. They basically say you can lie to us about anything, and even if we catch you lying, we won't do anything. I said, why are you not going to get this girl in trouble? She lied to you. She's wasted police time. You just told me she lied. Oh, well, we're too busy investigating you for being sexy.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And that's the Western world now. So as a man, when you talk about things like you guys are teaching, like dating and stuff, it's more than just, I want to have girls, right? This is survival. If you're a man and you're no good with women, you're either going to end up divorced, raped, or in a jail cell. You need to be smooth. You need to know what you're doing. Head to toe. This is not a joke, right? So, man, I've lived it. That's my version of a Me Too story, right? And what's crazy is that same girl messaged me like 2 years later asking for a job. I was like, you idiot.
Yeah, like, are you stupid? Nah, like, nah. And here's the other thing too. Like, yo, that girl made the allegation, but me and Trey were smarter than her. You know what I'm saying? We right before we took her bag and gave her security, we recorded inside of it. Bro, nothing in there except for a shitty iPhone and like a vape or something. Like, bro, you're broke. Get out of here. We're gonna steal some money from you. All right, let's hit some of these super chats. I think some of them came in. We got one, right?
No, we good.
Are we good? Okay. All right. Fair enough. So Andrew. Man. So we talked about the background. Your kickboxing background. toxic masculinity. Okay.
Masculinity.
Obviously, I'm excited for this collab as well because it's Frank Castle meets the Cobra.
Yeah.
And me and you have a terrible reputation, right? Yeah. Me on TikTok, I'm the misogynist and the toxically masculine guy, and you are the guy that is toxically masculine all over the world.
I'm a pimp, right?
Yeah.
And I get told I'm a pimp and I exploit, with my webcam business, people like to think I exploit the girls, which is, I like to say this, and I want to make this very clear. That's the complete opposite of the truth. I empowered females to become rich. I helped women become rich. I got rich, they got rich. We work together as a team. It's teamwork. If they all want to fuck me, then I'm sorry. But but what's the bad thing? They're all going to come and say, oh, you forced girls. I've never forced a girl to do a thing.
But Andrew, if they didn't meet you, they'd be on the street working at Kroger's
Well, this is what I'm saying. You know what my best workers were? My best workers were waitresses. The strippers are lazy. I wouldn't hire strippers because because webcam's like 10 hours a day. It's a real job.
It's real work.
Strippers just want quick money, right?
Yeah.
A waitress understands real work.
Yeah.
I was like, look, you're out here doing real work for pennies. With me, you can do real work for real money.
Yep.
These men think you're handsome, you pay your ransom. So it's like, come with the big G, let's get paid, right? So yeah, I never forced anybody to anything. It was all absolutely voluntary from head to toe. And they worked with me because they understood with me they'd make more money than they did on their own because I was a specialist and I had expertise. So yeah, I never forced women to do anything. So you have a bad reputation, but I had this bad reputation as a pimp, and all I did was offer women a job.
Yeah.
And I try and say, listen, the restaurant she worked in was pimping her harder than I ever did.
Yeah, facts, yeah.
I paid her $25,000 a month. I gave her half her money.
Yeah.
When you work for McDonald's, they don't give you half the money you ring up.
$7 an hour.
So
I'll tell you this. So Andrew, can you tell us about toxic masculinity and what it is in your eyes? Does it exist? Is it a farce?
Toxic masculinity.
Because you're considered the king of toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I've got that title. Toxic masculinity is a term that was invented by women nobody wants to fuck to describe the men that the women do want to fuck.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
That's all it is. That's all it is. No, but on a real level, like this whole idea of being toxically masculine is complete garbage. And the reason it's garbage is because it's a first world problem first. Because when you put males and females in survival situations, or the closer they are to a survival situation, the quicker they're going to revert to their gender roles. If you put a whole bunch of men and a whole bunch of women, you strand them on a desert island, the men would start having to build things and fight off the animals, and the women would start farming and whatever the women would do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah? So when shit hits the fan, everyone reverts to their natural gender roles. So if you live in a country like Romania or Russia or a country that's poor, the closer it is to survival, the lower the economic prosperity of the country, the closer people are to their natural gender roles. So Russian men are masculine, Russian females are feminine. But in America, it's the richest country in the world. It's a first world problem. All the women get to be stupid and the men get to be pussies because it's just a first world problem. This whole idea of being toxically masculine is absolutely garbage. Nobody's toxically... Listen, you're not going to call me toxically masculine if someone breaks in the house and I start spraying. No one's going to start calling me toxically masculine. No, there was no one called toxically masculine when they were fucking staying on the Titanic to die. Right? The whole thing is garbage, and it's just by women who are bitter and jealous, trying to insult and demonize men for being natural to their instinct. I don't want to rant too much. Right?
No, continue.
I don't want to rant. Okay, let's go. Let's go. The world we live in today tries very, very hard to refuse a man his natural instincts as a man.
Yep.
And this is done on purpose. This is not done on accident. There's no war on men on accident. Men are the ones who start revolutions. If you look at any revolution in history, it was the men who were on the street and started that revolution. If you want to control a populace, the first thing you do is control the men. When the Romans went and conquered Sparta, they killed all the men, all the young boys, all the fighting age males. When you're left with nothing but females, you can conquer and control a society.
This is long.
We're living in a world right now where there's supposedly some virus, and you have to stay in your house and put a mask on, and everyone's complaining.